Hello, I am Professor Chandana Goswami from Tezpur University, and we will talk about credit management. So this is part 1 of the video. We will start with understanding terms of payment. Some sales happen on cash basis while some happen on credit basis. So if you sell on cash basis, you have two ways of doing it. One is cash in advance and the other is cash on delivery. Normally credit sales are on open account. So what the seller does is that he sends the goods to the buyer and along with the invoice, that's the bill, which contains the credit terms. So you can see out here 2/10 net 30. This means that if the buyer pays off within 10 days, he will be entitled to a discount of 2%. Else he will get a maximum time of 30 days to make the payment. But any payment which is done after the 10th day is not eligible for a discount. Then you have something called a consignment. So here goods are sent to the consignee, but it's not sold to the consignee. The consignee is acting as an agent of the seller. So the seller retains the title of the goods until the consignee sells it to a third party. And periodically the consignee will remit the sales proceeds to the seller. You can see from this diagram, the consignee is the middleman out here. Goods are moving from the consignor, that is the seller, through the consignee to the buyer. The payment is also moving from the buyer through the consignee to the seller. But the title goes directly from the seller to the buyer. Then you have what is known as a bill of exchange. So when a trade happens, then the seller issues a document to the buyer asking the buyer to pay on demand or at a certain future date the amount which is specified out there. This document is accompanied by shipping documents that will be delivered to the buyer when he pays or accepts the above document. So there are two pieces of paper which goes to the buyer. One is this document where it is mentioned what is the amount and when it is to be paid. So when the buyer signs on this document, it becomes a trade acceptance and a bill of exchange. So this is a written evidence of a definite obligation. So when the buyer signs on this, then the shipping documents are handed to the buyer. So when it becomes a bill of exchange, what the seller can do is that it can hold on to this document till maturity. Till maturity means the maximum time which is given to the buyer to make a payment. Alright. Or what the seller can do is take this piece of document to a bank or a discounting house and then get it discounted. So if the seller wants money immediately, can take it to a bank and bank will give about 90 to 95% of the value then and there. So this is referred to as bill discounting. The bank then holds on to this bill of exchange and at the time of maturity will collect the money from the buyer. Next you have what is known as a letter of credit. As I explain this, please follow the numbers that are mentioned out here. That will give you the sequence of the flow. First, we need to understand that there is a buyer and there is a seller and they have their respective banks. So when the buyer tells the seller, I would like to buy all these goods from you, then the buyer tells his bank to issue a letter of credit in favor of the seller. So when the seller gets this letter of credit, the seller has some assurance that there is going to be no problem in the payment part. The seller, if he wishes, can use this letter of credit, show it to his bank and obtain credit. This is not necessary, but if he wants, the seller can do this. Then the seller will send the goods to the buyer, but the title to the goods, shipping documents and all that goes through the seller's bank to the buyer's bank. So the buyer's bank, when it gets the title of these goods, knows that the goods have been sent, and because there is a letter of credit, the buyer's bank will make the payment directly to the seller. So the seller gets the payment. And in the meantime, the buyer's bank will inform the buyer that the title of the goods has arrived, and the buyer will now make a payment to his bank, take the title of the goods, and take custody of the goods which have come. So those were the terms of payment. Now let us move to credit policy variables. There are 4 variables. First is credit standards. It can be liberal or stiff. If it is a liberal credit standard, it means that the company has no problem in making credit sales to anybody who asks for it. But if the standards are stiff, it means that the company is selective in deciding to whom it should give sales on credit. Second is the credit period. Normally, on an average, you have a credit period of 30 to 45 days. So you could have a credit period of less than that or more than that. Third point is cash discount. So there are occasions on which cash discount is given. So this is a way of enticing the buyer that you can get a whole lot of savings if you pay in cash immediately. And fourth is collection effort. The effort that you put in to make sure that your accounts receivables converts into cash at the earliest. So the collection effort could be rigorous or it could be lax. All these 4 credit policy variables have an impact on sales, bad debts, accounts receivables, and collection cost. You can see from here, if the credit standard is liberal, which means you have no problem in giving credit to whoever asks for it, obviously your sales is going to be high. If sales is high, accounts receivable will also be high, and there is chance that your bad debts will also be high, and you will have to put in a lot of effort to get the accounts receivable converted into cash. If you have stiff credit standards, that is, you are very selective about issuing, about having credit sales, then you will have few buyers. So your sales will be on the lower side as compared to a liberal standard. So when sales are on the lower side, accounts receivable will also be low, bad debts also will be low. All right, and it is low because you are having quality customers, and obviously the collection cost is also low. Then let's move to the credit period. If you give more than the average credit period for payment, your buyers are going to be very happy, so they will buy more from you. Sales will be high, which will lead to high accounts receivable, which is likely to translate into high amount of bad debts, and you will have to make a lot of time, put in a lot of time and effort, so your collection cost is going to be high in terms of recovering the accounts receivable. But if the credit period is less than the average, your buyers are going to be a little cautious about buying from you, so sales will be relatively low. Accounts receivable will also therefore be low. Bad debts will also be low, and you will have a lower collection cost. If the company decides to offer cash discount, sales is expected to go up. Your accounts receivable will be on the lower side because most of your sales has taken place on cash basis. So bad debts will also be low and collection cost will also be low. But if you do not offer cash discount, your sales will remain the same. Accounts receivable will also remain the same. Bad debts will remain the same. Collection cost will also remain the same. The last point is collection effort. If you have rigorous collection effort, your buyers are not going to like that. So therefore, there is going to be a decrease in sales and accounts receivable will decrease, bad debts will decrease, but the collection cost will go up. And the opposite is that your collection effort is lax. So therefore buyers are very happy about it. Sales will go up, which will translate into higher accounts receivables, which will translate into higher bad debts and lower collection cost because the effort was low. So you did not have to spend much time and money on the collection effort. So this is how the variables are having an impact on sales, account receivables, bad debts and the collection cost. We now move to understanding how should the credit risk be assessed. So you have what is known as the traditional 5 C's. The first is character, where we talk of the integrity of the buyer. Then we talk of capacity, which talks about his ability. Third is capital, which talks about financial resources. Collateral is the security that the buyer will offer so that you give him sales on credit. And conditions are the general economic conditions that influence any business. So when you are doing this 5C assessment, you need to fall back on the financial statements of that company. You need to check out on their bank references. And if it is an old customer, you can very well find out the experience that you have had with this firm. And also you can check out the stock market data of the firm. This will help you in making a judgment as to whether to offer a credit sales or not. We can do what is known as a sequential credit analysis, where we are checking on three C's of those 5 C's. So you start with the character of the person. Is it good or bad? If it is yes or no, you will check next on the capacity. Capacity can be strong or weak in either case. Then you move to the next level, which is the capital. So you will also check whether the capital was strong or weak. And you come to a conclusion about the quality of this buyer. So at one end you have a buyer with excellent risk because the buyer has good character, strong capacity and strong capital. At the other end you have a very poor buyer who is termed as a dangerous risk, where the character is weak, capacity is weak and capital is also weak. A fair risk is one where 2 of the C's are positive and 1 C is negative. A doubtful risk is where 1 C is positive only and 2 C's are negative. So it now depends on your company policy that as to which category you are going to offer credit. So if you have stiff credit standards, you will stick to giving credit to excellent risk and fair risk. But if your credit standards are relaxed kind of standards, liberal standards, then maybe you will also offer credit to this third category, which is known as a doubtful risk. So this is the one way in which we classify the customers. There is another way which is known as the numerical credit scoring. So what we do here is that first we identify the factors that are relevant for credit evaluation. And then we will assign weights according to the importance of these factors. After that, we will rate the customers on these factors on a 5-point scale or a 7-point scale. We will calculate the weighted factor score, then add all the weighted factor scores to get a customer rating index. I will show you how it is done. So this is the table. We have identified factors. These factors are not fixed, they are not prescriptions. The company can decide which factors to select. And according to the importance, you will give weights to these factors. You can see the weights that I've put out here. Please keep in mind that the total of these weights must add to 1. So factors are selected, weights are assigned, then you will rate the customers on this 5-point scale. Okay. Suppose these are the ratings that I have given. I have to find out the weighted factor score. So what I'm doing out here, I have taken this 4, the rating, and I'm multiplying it by the weight. Alright, so 4 multiplied by 0.3. For the next factor, I gave a rating of 5. So 5 multiplied by 0.1. You can see out here. So this is how the weighted factor score is calculated. And then we will add this up to get the final rating index. So you can see the rating index comes to 4.5. So the next important question is that what is the cutoff? What is the score that we will use to categorize our customer as one who is eligible for credit and someone who is not eligible for credit? Now you can see 3 is the midpoint out here. So maybe I will say any rating index greater than 3 will be eligible for credit. But if I have very stiff credit standards, I will say that 4 is the cutoff. Any rating index greater than equal to 4 will be eligible for a credit. But if I have very liberal credit standards, I can reduce it also. I will say 2.5 will be my cutoff. So you can see now how you use this table to classify your customers and decide whether you are going to offer credit or not. So post-credit evaluation, our customers can be classified into different categories. But like in any evaluation, there is error which can happen. We are referring it to as type 1 error or type 2 error. So in a type 1 error, we classify a good customer wrongly as a high-risk customer. In a type 2 error, a high-risk customer is wrongly classified as a good customer. So the consequences is that if there is a type 1 error and you have rejected a good customer because of the wrong classification, you have lost out on sales out here. In a type 2 error, you got in a high risk customer because he was wrongly classified as a good customer. So here you have the probability that you will have more of bad debts. So errors can happen in evaluation also. Let's summarize. So we have understood about the payment terms. We have understood about credit variables and their impact. We have also understood how to classify customers after assessing their credit worthiness. In the next video, Credit Management 2, we will learn about credit granting decision and controlling accounts receivables. Thank you for tuning in.